Remind us, firstly then, why this law has caused such an outcry.
Well, this law officially, Stuart, is called the Anti-Paedophilia Act. In the West, it's been portrayed as an anti-LGBT law, so that already gives you a sense of this big gulf in perceptions. But it did start out as a move to try to increase punishments for child abuse. What really caused a stir was the final amendments to this bill, which effectively, according to the critics of the law, conflated paedophilia with homosexuality, and this really caused a big stir at a recent EU summit when Viktor Orban, the Hungarian Prime Minister, was confronted by other EU leaders, and Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor, told him straight up, you cannot mix paedophilia with homosexuality. And this isn't just about what happens in classrooms. I mean, as you mentioned, broadcasters in Hungary are worried as well. If they were to show a film in the daytime, which could be seen by children, right, because it's not late at night, a film that features gay characters, does that count as promotion of homosexuality? Will they get into trouble? So there's a lot of questions swirling around in Hungary that go beyond simple matters of teaching in school.
I mean, it's not just Hungary, this, is it? I mean, it's very much part of a kind of culture war, if you like, between the Eastern European nations and those further west.
Yeah, it's an East-West divide, as President Macron recently called it. What we're seeing is in some of those Central European countries, by no means all, but some of them, conservative movements are really coming, sort of pushing this narrative of Western members of the EU imposing alien values on the population. And that kind of narrative actually does resonate with older voters, you know, the oldest voters of parties like Fidesz in Hungary or Law and Justice in Poland, older voters that experienced communism and who saw communism as also imposing alien values on Poles or Hungarians. So this narrative has a kind of historical resonance in a way. And another key part of that narrative actually is, and a very important one, is this sense of Western Europe as being hypocritical. So for example, you know, France talking a lot about solidarity and working together and how Europe is stronger together. But then when it suits France to tighten border controls because of asylum seekers coming from Italy or because people might be carrying COVID from other EU countries trying to come into France, then France will tighten border controls. So that kind of narrative, a very key one that some of these Central European conservatives use. Meanwhile, for Western members of the EU, this is definitely not about imposing alien norms. It is about upholding the very norms that every EU member signed up to when they joined the European Union. This point was made very forcefully by Mark Rutte, the Dutch Prime Minister, at that very fractious recent EU summit with Viktor Orban, when he told Orban, "I'm ashamed. What am I supposed to tell North Macedonia and Albania, which are candidate countries to join the EU? How can I tell them that you have to defend equal rights when an existing member of the EU club does not defend those same rights?" So this is the idea expressed by Rutte, Macron, Merkel and others, that the EU cannot simply be a trading bloc. It really has to be a community of values as well.
So, Armin, is the EU, or will the EU actually take any action then against Hungary?
Well, the European Commission believes that this law breaches the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights as well as other legislation. It can launch an infringement procedure and eventually sue Hungary in the European Court of Justice. Of course, that process does take quite a long time. This is not the first dispute between the EU and Hungary and Poland. There was a problem over aspects of Hungary's asylum process and over Poland's judicial reforms. That was the subject of a major dispute between the EU and Poland and Hungary. It was actually resolved, which was very helpful in a sense, because if it hadn't been resolved, then coronavirus recovery funding could have been blocked to Hungary and Poland. We'll have to see if, despite the rhetoric, a compromise can be found on this issue as well, Stuart, or whether this time a red line really has been crossed and that the EU perhaps won't be willing to back down this time on this LGBT issue. We'll have to see, of course, in the next few weeks.
Armin, thanks very much. Armin Georgian, our international affairs editor there.